first day in Yellowstone started with a beautiful sunrise over the lodge at Flagg Ranch. This was our view from the picnic table in front of our cabin. We enjoyed watching the light change as we made coffee and breakfast on our trusty old camp stove. Today is Thursday, June 2nd, and we only have 2 days in Yellowstone before we need to continue our trek west to Seattle. There's a lot to see and do in Yellowstone, so we knew we would only scratch the surface.
Bicyclist.
Where?
Right here on the shoulder.
There's the light.
Yeah, he needs something brighter to wear.
Oh yeah, we're in camouflage.
He dapples in with the
Real
trees. Yes.
smart.
Oh, another bike. Slow down. They're slowing down too. Oh, nice timing. Another bike.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He's uphill, man. Crazy bikers. More power to them. River? What is this river? This is the Lewis River. Makes sense, right? Lewis Lake, Lewis River. Oh, look at the, mist, haze.
Heart filled with worries, no more. In a world full of sorrows, what for? You watch the world from the place beneath the willow, the willow. So many years, too many tears on your pillow, on your pillow. Out of the darkness, a sound. It all seems so heartless.
What's today's date there? June 2nd?
June 2nd.
Yeah. Not in Yellowstone. It looks like it's December.
We pulled into the boat launch at Lewis Lake to get a better view. We discovered lots of snow, although it was starting to melt, and the lake was still completely frozen over. There's no way I would have tried walking on it, but it was a solid sheet of ice.
I do wonder how common it is for them to have snow, like this much snow still, this late in the year. Is this a normal thing?
I think the one guy said that they had 3 foot of snow in Cody last weekend, wasn't it?
Yeah. That the east entrance was closed
Yeah.
because they were trying to plow it out.
Our first planned stop was to see Old Faithful. There are several websites that predict when the next eruption will be, give or take, so we had headed out early to catch one about 9 a.m. Our campground was only 2 miles south of the south entrance to Yellowstone, but from the south entrance to the southern loop is another 20 miles, and then from the split there at the southern loop to Old Faithful is an additional 20 miles. Yellowstone is big, and you never know when you'll run into a bison jam or some other kind of jam, so plan plenty of time.
Smell it?
Let's see back there.
Are they saying that Old Faithful's not the biggest?
Right.
It's just the most
Predictable.
predictable. Oh, very good. Starting to spew.
Nope, false alarm. Here we go.
Finally got your flag. Yeah. Blowing our way.
So now that we had experienced Old Faithful, we spent a little bit of time exploring the shops in Old Faithful Village, and then we headed back out on the road to see some of the other natural wonders of Yellowstone. Our next stop was BISCUIT Basin. It's so interesting to see the different colors and the different mineral deposits, shapes, and the boiling water. You can see here just how fragile the surface is. After spending some time here, we hopped back in the car to head down to the Midway Geyser Basin, which is where the Grand Prismatic Spring is. I was so excited to see it, but when we got there, the line of traffic to get into the parking area was so long that we decided to change our plans for today. I had to be back to the cabin mid-afternoon to attend a meeting for work. So we decided today we would just take a tour of the southern loop of Yellowstone, trying to spot wildlife instead of stopping to visit all of the various springs and geysers. And then tomorrow we would get up super early and head straight to Grand Prismatic. So our route today would take us up through Madison, Norris, Canyon Village, down through Fishing Bridge, and then back to the south entrance. The lower loop is over 90 miles. A little further down the road, we turned onto Firehole Lake Road. There are a lot of geysers and springs down here, one that erupts every 12 to 24 minutes, which explains all the people here. We didn't realize that at the time, or we would have stayed to watch it erupt. A little further down, though, we did spot some buffalo. The scenery at Yellowstone is beautiful, and there are buffalo or bison everywhere. There are lots of picnic areas with beautiful views, but because we had to be back by mid afternoon, we decided to eat lunch in the truck as we drove.
Doug couldn't have planned that to happen. I'm fighting to get them out of the package.
That is the sound of me opening a bag of crackers and them flying everywhere.
Where we're at now, so we're coming to a junction. You're going to turn right.
Was here up at the stop sign.
Up at the stop sign. That would be left. Are floor crackers good? Yeah, so we're going to go. Well, I guess it's just straight ahead, actually.
There's a couple other crackers.
Oh, here's
Thank you very much.
a couple floor crackers for you. There's a few more down there.
You're not a little gritty.
The floor crackers.
We continued making our way around the loop, spotting a few more bison, until we got to Fishing Bridge and began driving alongside Yellowstone Lake. There was quite a bit of ice on Yellowstone Lake as well, although not as much as on Lewis Lake. How beautiful is this view? The next day, we were up bright and early and headed back into the park. We stopped this morning to take a picture at one of the Continental Divide signs. The Continental Divide actually crosses the roads in Yellowstone several times. And, of course, we had to stop at some falls. I didn't do a very good job of keeping track, but I believe this was Lewis Falls. From here, we headed past Old Faithful to the Midwest Geyser Basin and what I had been looking for, Grand Prismatic Spring. From the parking area, you first cross Firehole River and then take a one-way boardwalk past a few other features before getting to Grand Prismatic. Coming so early in the morning, it was much less crowded. We had no problem finding parking. The downside, though, is that it was pretty chilly still, and there was so much steam that it made it really difficult to see the colors of Grand Prismatic. You can see a few hints of color if you look closely. I was disappointed not to be able to see the really vibrant colors of Grand Prismatic, but I was surprised by how beautiful the landscape around it was. You can see all of these layers of built-up minerals. There's many different colors, and you can see like animal prints in some places. They have quite a bit of signage that explains how all of this was formed and that this is a very delicate ecosystem. This is one of the reasons they have the boardwalk here, to protect this microscopic ecosystem that exists just under the surface. On the way out of the loop, you cross back over the bridge again and can see the hot water from the springs flowing into the Firehole River. Our next stop was Firehole Canyon Road to see both Firehole Cascades and Firehole Falls. A little further down the road, just before getting to Norris, we stopped at this information center. It was closed and unstaffed, but it was still an interesting place to stop and look at the architecture, something that Yellowstone is known for, as well as the view behind it. Less than a week later, much of this area would be underwater in the June 2022 floods that took out many of the roads north of here and closed the park. After our little break, we continued on. This is called Roaring Mountain. Apparently, back in the early 1900s, the steam coming out was so pressurized that it made a roaring sound. Now it's very quiet. You really don't hear anything at all, but this is another good place to spot bison. From here, we headed up towards Mammoth, taking a few minutes to drive through some of the hoodoos that are scattered along this road. We also stopped for a few minutes at the Sheep Eater picnic area. It's named for a group of Shoshone who lived here before Yellowstone was even a park. The cliffs are formed of lava flow that has solidified into columnar basalt. It sits right beside the Gardner River and has beautiful views. It would definitely be a great place for a picnic. Right before reaching Mammoth, you can turn off onto Upper Terrace Drive. It has a beautiful view overlooking Mammoth, and there are lots of interesting springs and formations to see on this little loop drive also. Mammoth is pretty crowded, especially on a Friday afternoon. We did stop, though, to take some pictures of the famous elk that always seem to be populating the area. You've probably seen videos of people being chased. We were careful not to get too close. After leaving Mammoth Hot Springs, we headed east towards Roosevelt, stopping for a few minutes at Undine Falls. It's a really easy little hike just down a few steps to get a great view of the falls. We stopped at another pullout with this beautiful view. Really, almost every pullout is worth stopping at. We took a turn off to see a site labeled Petrified Tree. And instead, we did see the petrified tree, but while we were there, we also saw this coyote, which was really interesting.
Hello. Give people money.
And then a little further down the road, we had our one and only bear sighting. From here, we went through Tower Junction and then headed south towards Mount Washburn, which I believe is the highest point in the park. There are beautiful views from up here. We were treated with some dramatic views as we made our way down the other side. Our last stop of the day was to see the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone. We hiked up to Lookout Point to take these shots of the lower falls.
There somewhere, wondering when we'll be departed.
And then drove a little bit further down the road to Inspiration Point to get a little better view of the canyon itself.
But we set out to walk 1,000 good miles from
We ended our day back where our trip to Yellowstone had begun at Old Faithful Village. We spotted several more buffalo. I feel bad for the park rangers who are constantly having to shoo people away. We wanted to check out Old Faithful Inn, which is supposed to be the largest standing log structure still in existence. It's beautiful. The iconic yellow guest buses, the wood timbers inside, the giant stone fireplace, the crow's nest way up in the rafters. I'm not sure that photos or even videos can capture the grandeur of the place. We then headed over to the Snow Lodge for dinner, did a little bit more shopping, and that wrapped up our 2 days in Yellowstone. Tomorrow we would head out through Grand Teton, doing a little bit more sightseeing, including a few pictures of some iconic barns, on our way to Idaho and the Sawtooth Mountains.
down, 'cause we set out to walk 1,000 good miles.